Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at this PlayStation 3. This is a super slim version. It's got an issue where the USB ports aren't working, as well as the amount of dust that I can see in this is probably running hot. So I'm going to correct for those things. I'll show you how I do it. Here we've got a PlayStation. This is a Super Slim, and it's got an issue. It's relatively straightforward to fix. It is these USB ports. Looking at them nice and close, it looks like they're heavily corroded. So I'm curious what happened to the bottom of this. Maybe something spilled on the counter, the desk, or whatever this was on, and got into them. That being said, let's take this guy apart, and I'll show you what it takes to fix it. First things first, let's slide off the side here by pushing it forward, and then this pops off. We'll flip it over, and it looks like we're already missing one of the pads, but we'll need to pop up these two as well, along with this warranty sticker, so that we can remove these 4 screws. As you can see, they're quite long, but all 4 are the same length, so it's easy to, you can't mix them up. Next, we'll flip this over, and typically this side comes off fairly easily. You just push down here on this little lever, and then you slide it off. Sometimes they're stuck from years of grime, but this one came off all right. Quite dusty in there. The front one is a little bit trickier to get off because it's got a bunch of clips, but you can pop them one by one, and eventually what will happen is you'll get to where they're all popped, and then right under here you need to slide out a little clip and a screw here on the side, and this will slide over and pop off. And this side's even dirtier. Holy cow. Let's take out the hard drive. We'll loosen up this blue screw, pull in the little lever so we get some leverage, and pull out the hard drive. And then there are 2 more screws that we'll take out. These 3 are also the same size. They go on this side. There are 2 screws accessible here, same under the disk drive, same as the other 3 screws. And then we have 4 screws down here and 1 up here to take out. And again, keeping with the same thing, they're all the same size, so it's easy to keep track of. Now we can pop off the top housing. And this is definitely dirty, and I think that this console deserves a deep clean. But first, let's take it apart. We've got a few pull tabs here. This little ribbon cable, this slightly bigger one here that we need to pull the little plastic clip on. Then it'll slide out, and then if we give this one a little bit of space, we can wiggle it out as well, just like that. And if you're needing to, at this point, replace this guy, this is the right time to do it. Obviously, if you need to clean it, go deeper. There are 2 screws holding down the big power supply here. These ones also are the same size. And we'll need to disconnect this connector over here, just like that. And we can lift up the power supply. With a little wiggle, that'll come out. And this too, really dirty. We'll disconnect this ribbon. Unscrew these 2 screws for the coax cables. We'll remove these 5 screws and hold down the motherboard. Take a bunch of dust with it. And these 5 are also the same size. And then finally, to remove this whole inner unit, we just have to take off these 2 screws that have these little arrows pointing to them. And they as well are identical to each other. And then this whole center unit will come out. And man, this is dirty. I'm going to disconnect the 2 coax cables. We'll flip it on over. Now there are 4 screws and these 2 black ones to remove. These 2 black ones in the center for the heatsink. So we'll set those aside. And this back plate will come off. It too is extremely dirty, so we'll want to clean that up. Now I believe that what we're seeing there is residue from flux. At some point maybe this was worked on. We'll go ahead and flip this over, and I'm going to spend a minute or so just gently putting some pressure on the frame. I don't want to bend the board too much, but eventually, oh, I forgot this one connector here. Can't be missing stuff like that. With a little wiggle, that'll come out as well. And out will come the motherboard, which this looks all right. I do see some stuff right there that we'll get to in a second. A little dusty. That fan needs to be cleaned out for sure. Pretty nasty. Something right there. Looked metallic for a second, but it's not. We definitely could use a nice board cleaning here, along with inside those ports, if not just replace them. Now I do have a donor board that is still fairly dusty, but the actual USB-C ports, are in much better shape. So I'm probably just going to pull them instead of trying to deal with all of the corrosion that's on those. These are a lot cleaner and they're relatively easy to pull and replace. Scratch that there. They look to be slightly different. We'll have to double check. They just look slightly different, but they're actually identical as far as the pin layout and everything, so I'll be good to use them. Alright, so I want to now take off the fan guard. So I'm going to take out this screw right here and this one over here. And then it should just fall away. And I'm going to feed out these wires here. This will need a little bit of a cleaning. Alright, we'll take out the screw here in the middle. We drop the fan. And it definitely could use a good cleaning. Alright, I'm also going to pop apart the power supply. Obviously, taking apart a power supply is not something to mess around with too much. They're dangerous, so make sure you're extra careful. There's just a bunch of these clips around the border that you just push down and push in, and the sides will pop up. And then we'll just pop up. There we go, pop the last one out. Alright, and I recommend if you're ever going to hold a power supply, make sure you hold it on the edge and never touch any of the actual electronics with your fingers, because they might be possibly charged. And I'll pop out the button, as we're going to give this all a good cleaning in a second. And I could take this apart, but they're kind of annoying to put back together, so I'm just going to clean it as is. All of this is just mechanical. There's nothing electronic in this section, so I'll just clean it and make sure I do a decent job. For this next step, I'm going to be giving everything a really good cleaning. First, I'm going to wipe down my desk, and we'll get out my cleaning kit. Now, you don't have to use distilled water for this, but I like to. And we'll fill this guy up quite a bit. We'll add some soap, put on some gloves, just mix up water a little bit. Alright, we'll put the plastics in there and get them all soaking. And we'll start with these. A nice little scrub down. A big bubble. I'll dry them off one by one and make these look as clean as possible. The goal is obviously to make this look as new as possible. Just one piece at a time. Alright, let's do the bottom now. Amazing what a little bit of soap and elbow grease can do to bring something back to life. Alright, we'll clean up this area as well. And then of course the top side. And I will say the color of that water and all of the dust in there, nasty. Alright, now we'll get out my little cleaning kit for the electronics section. We'll start with the power supply. Alright. And for this, I'm just using some 91%. If you have 99, go for it. 91, it seems to be fine. I'm just going to go around and clean up everywhere that I see dust. And we'll make sure we let this thoroughly air out, dry off before reassembling it. Alright, and now for the motherboard. We'll be replacing this thermal paste, so I'm going to go ahead and clean it off. It's pretty dry anyway. What would do wonders and save me a lot of time would be to use a ultrasonic. My current ultrasonic wouldn't fit a board this big. I won't worry about cleaning those because we'll replace them. And I'm just going to gently dust off these. I don't like messing too much with the laser. I don't like messing too much with the disc readers. Get rid of any of the big clumps of dust. We'll clean it up, but just like to be careful. The hard drive looks pretty good as well. We'll just get rid of some of the dust on the outside. Alright, that's fairly dirty, so let's go ahead and give that a little spritz. Just clean this whole thing up. We'll get rid of as much of the rust as we can. There's only so much I can do about it. Otherwise, we'll just give it a nice, good cleaning. And for the heatsink, clean this up all the way as well. And time to finally clean this guy. And now it's time to put it all back together. Never mind, I forgot the fan. So let's just clean that real quick. We'll start by just doing a dry pass on it. Get rid of the bulk of the dust. Now let's spray it down. And I'll just go ahead and clean individual blades on both sides. Alright, that is much cleaner. Alright, everything is bone dry. We'll go ahead and reinstall everything. And when it says caution, it means it. We'll go ahead. Alright, we'll make sure everything clicks back in. And that looks so much cleaner. We'll put back the screws. And tighten them down. Before we install the motherboard back on here, we need to fix the USB ports. So let's go do that. To remove these is actually quite simple. I'm just going to put a bunch of flux on there. I'm going to get out just a little bit of some 138 solder paste. It's a low melt. Turn on my soldering iron. And we're going to go ahead and add a bunch of low melt to all of these legs. This will bring the temperature that the solder needs to get to way down so that I can have a much easier time removing them from the board without melting the plastic, because there's plastic inside the USB and it will melt if I'm not careful. So we'll add the low melt to the two big legs along with the 4 pins. And we're going to be taking hot air to this to get the whole board up to temperature so we can let the HDMIs fall through the board. Because they're through hole, it's straight through hole soldering here. Nothing too complicated. There are other ways you can do this with some solder suckers to clear the holes. You can use a wick. You don't even have to add the low melt. You just risk overheating things. All right, we'll get our hot air going. I'm directing the heat away from the plastic portions, but all over the board here. It's gonna get a little smoky. And when we got movement, we'll just wiggle it back and forth. That was super tough. Let's do it all again while the board is still hot. Now we'll just repeat it for the one we need to remove. Add some flux. We'll add some solder. Now we'll come in with the heat. Now I'm going to go ahead and wick up as much of the solder as I can. Just a little bit left in some of those holes. I'm going to get a new fresh wick and some flux. Now we'll clean it up really nicely with isopropyl alcohol. Get rid of all of the flux. If you ever have flux that isn't coming off while cleaning, just heat it back up and it'll come wipe right off all hot. Installing these is really straightforward. Just going to take the ones that we salvaged and we'll push everything through. There's a little solder on that one, so it kind of snapped in. But once it's all the way through, we can then just tack all of those with solder. And we'll push the other one through as well. Add a bit of flux. We'll get out some solder. And we'll go ahead and tack each leg in place by holding the USB port in position. And then to ensure that the solder goes all the way through the board, I'm going to take some hot air. And one by one, we'll tack each one. And that's how you end up with a perfect flow job through the board. And although these are used USBs, they will work because they're not corroded like the others were. Which if I really wanted to, I could have taken it apart, nickel plated them, but when you have them, use them. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put some new thermal compound, some thermal grease. Put a nice blob here in the center. That should be sufficient. And an even smaller one right there. That should be good enough. We'll go ahead and flip this over. Make sure we feed those cables through the side there. Guide those guys down into their slots. Line everything up. Now we'll take the back, put it on. Now we can put back the screws and the heatsink clamp. Scratch that and reverse it. I'll take this apart again. I forgot to put the fan on. I knew I had an extra screw for a reason. And then we'll lift up on the motherboard. And you can see we got really good coverage actually with the heatsink there. And we can install the fan. Alright, we'll put in the screw there. And we can put on the fan guard. And again, it's easy to see because they have arrows. So you don't see an arrow here, you don't put a screw there. Alright, we'll get everything fed back through. Put back the heatsink. I almost forgot this screw here. Alright, now we'll feed the cables up and through. And we'll put these guys back. And we'll take the bottom housing and reinstall everything. We'll go ahead and reinstall the power supply, making sure these cables are out of the way. And we'll put back the screws. And we can reconnect to the power supply. Alright, we'll grab our disc reader here. Actually, before we do that, we need to reinstall the button. Alright, now we can take this. We'll slide in the ribbon cable. Just like that. We'll install the 2 ribbon cables. Now we'll put this guy over the top. Make sure things click into place. And we'll put back the 6 screws. 5 screws. We got the 2 next to the disk drive here. We'll go ahead and let this guy click back into place. Same with the one here on the bottom. Alright, we'll reinstall the hard drive with its screw. And then the 3 screws on the side. We'll slide on the side piece and get it to click. And then finally we'll put back the 4 screws on the back. And then I'm going to put back these legs over here. We'll just leave these 2 exposed. And it's finally back together. Alright, and it's finally back together. Nice and clean. Alright, so let's see if this works. We'll go ahead and hit the power button. First we need to make sure it turns on. And it does. and it's working, which is good. I need to check the USB ports. So to do that, I'm just going to see if they charge my phone. So we'll go ahead and plug that in. And as you can see, we are charging. It will be fairly slow to charge, but because it's a 2 amp, but we need to also check the second port. So we'll pop this out, connect it to the second, and we get charging, which means the USB ports are fixed as well. And it's running nice and cool. This one is all fixed. And there we go. It's all fixed, put back together. Such a great little unit. They're fun to take apart. They are like little vacuums, so they do suck up a lot of dust. That being said, this one's good to go. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. If there's something that you'd like to see in a future video, let me know as well. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.